All right, so we are at the top of the hour. So we are officially at noon plus one. So I'm going to start. I will start my remarks. How I start all these remarks is we've been doing this with the two simple words, hello world. My name is Glenn Shore. I am a representative of the Harris County Houston Sports Authority and the local organizing committee for the World Transplant Games. I also serve on the Coffee Chat subcommittee. And we are so thrilled to have you here today. Those of you that have been following us, uh, we are on a third Coffee Chat. This actually started in 2014 with the collection of individuals at the Transplant Games of America. And we decided to take this global. And we are in our third Coffee Chat. On Friday, we had the former Surgeon General of the United States. On Sunday, we had donor families. Today, we are having recipients and recipient families. And then tomorrow, we're going to have an open house. We're going to have transplant coordinators and nurses on Thursday, and then a final open house on Friday. So it is great to have you all here today. Again, my name is Glenn Shore. I just have a couple housekeeping remarks. And what I will then do is introduce my CEO, Janice Burke, and then our subcommittee chair, Tricia Fleeman. First of all, a couple of welcoming remarks is we are thrilled to hear today. This is a Q&A session. This is an interactive session, and we really, really, really want your questions. So the best thing to do is you'll see a chat feature as part of Zoom. Just type your question in on chat feature, and then those will get to me, and then we'll try to get to all your questions today. Second of all, we've muted our guests to make sure that we have the best audio quality possible. Like I said, if you have questions, just type them in, we'll go through. In the interest of time today, we ask that if you have questions, make sure that the questions are in reference of our topic today, which is the recipient family or recipients. We really want to keep as tight to that topic as we can. We only have an hour, and about half that time is going to be Q&A. Like I said, as this is a worldwide event, today we're providing translation in French, Italian, and Spanish. You will see an international translation button at the top. You can pick the room you want to be in. And thank you to our translators today, both in-house and across the world, that are providing translation today in French, Italian, and Spanish. So if you'd like to take advantage of those services, click on the interpretation globe located on the control bar now. Now, before I introduce our guest speakers today, I'd like to introduce two people and have them give brief words. So first, Janice, I'm going to pass it to you. I'd like to introduce Janice Burke, who is our LOC chair and the CEO of the Harris County Houston Sports Authority. So Janice, a few words of welcome, please.
Hi, everyone. I get to talk to most of you on social media, and it's great to see your face here today. Thanks for participating. These coffee chats are meant to be kind of casual. If you don't have a question, but you just want to say hello from whatever city or country you're in, use the chat box. It's always fun for us to see all of the various people that have tuned in. But every coffee chat that I've attended has been different and interesting. And that's because our coffee chat committee that works so hard. I see Kayla on here and Tricia, who is the chair of it. I'm sure there's others. I don't want to leave anybody out, but thank you to our subcommittee. They've been working for several months on this and really wanted to provide a variety of topics and speakers for you. So good to see everyone.
Great. Thank you, Janice. And now I'd like to introduce one of our subcommittee chairs, Tricia Fleeman from Walgreens booth, who is truly the heart and soul of this subcommittee. I mean, without her, we would not be where we are today. So Tricia, anything you'd like to add to Janice before you go to the box of Kleenex, as you invariably do at the 20-minute mark?
Got him here. Thanks, Glenn. And thank you, Janice. And I want to welcome everyone from the whole wide world. We are just so pleased to have everyone join us and, take the message out to the world and share more and more with the awareness of just becoming a donor. Organ, eye, and tissue donation is so important. And I think you're going to hear a lot more about that importance here today with our guests. So thank you, Glenn. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and get the tissues ready.
Great. Sounds great. So thanks, Tricia. So, and obviously, thanks to our friends at Walgreens. Also, special shout outs today to our friends at the World Transplant Games Federation. Also to Oregon India. Oregon India has been a huge participant in this, and we're so grateful for really everybody's contribution, but Oregon India really in the last couple months has stepped up and helped us with speakers and stuff. So we're thankful to everybody. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our four panelists today. First is Mr. Kahun Nanda from India. He actually participated in his 5K recently. He just told me he was going to play golf, but unfortunately due to COVID, golf has shut down the courses in India. So Kahun, in his true spirit, he got on a treadmill and walked 5 kilometers with a championship level golf bag of approximately 12 kilos or 26 pounds strapped over his shoulder. So he'll be our first story in a moment. Second is going to be Mr. Walt McGuire from the United States. Third is Ms. Mandy Nathan, also of the United States. And then finally, Ms. Hailey Ice from South Africa. So what I'll do is we'll go in the order of Kahun, Walt, Mandy, and Hailey, and each of you will take about 5 minutes, tell us your stories. And then, we'll kind of I'll pass the baton to the next person. And then around the bottom of the hour, we'll start fielding questions from the audience, and we'll just take it from there. So, and again, reminder to the audience, put your questions in the chat feature and we'll pick them up for you. So Kahun, now that you're off the golf course, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story?
Thanks, Glenn. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this coffee chat. Well, my story is a little bit different to the rest of the people who I have come across who needed to have transplant. I actually used to be a soccer player or wanted to be a soccer player all my life. And I actually had a heart attack while I was playing soccer in the soccer field. And, but I thought it was asymptomatic. I had acid pain at that time. And, when I was 40, 41. And at that age, acidity is a common factor. So I kept playing soccer. I pushed on. Finally went home and I told my wife that, today is a really exceptionally bad day for my acidity. Let me pop a pill. 30 minutes later, I was literally on the floor with the pain in my stomach, which is like the solar plexus. And, I saw my kids' faces who were 11 and 9 at that time, my boy and girl respectively. And I said, okay, there's something wrong with me because I'm lying on the floor and I'm in pain. And I said, I told my wife, I said, Ritika, something's wrong. So she said, can you point out where it's hurting? So I pointed out on my solar plexus and I said, it's really bad here. It's acidity. So she said, do you think it could be a heart attack? I said, are you mad? Me and heart attack? I've been playing soccer all my life. Non-smoker, non-drinker, no cholesterol. What are you talking about? So she said, anyways, if it's so bad, let's just go to the hospital. So we packed the kids in, we dropped them to her mom's house. And then we were slowly driving to the hospital when I said, look, something's really wrong. I'm breaking into cold sweats now. And this was almost an hour and a half since the episode started. So we rushed to the hospital. It was obviously a small nursing home in India because we thought it was nothing. We thought it was stomach pain. But, so the moment they put me onto the table to check for my ECG, I collapsed. So I had no heart rate. So I flatlined. Immediately, they took me into the operation theater. They told my wife to go and sit at the reception because we didn't even go to the emergency room. And they started the PCR and the shock treatment and so on and so forth. And then 5 minutes later, they came and told her that we've managed to revive him, but this is something we can't handle. He needs to go to a bigger hospital. We've already called an ambulance. It's on the way, and we'll load him, and we can't do anything more. So what had happened was I'd had a blood clot, which had traveled to my aorta, and it had given me a heart attack. Anyways, so from then on, it's like a movie for my wife. So my wife sat in front of the ambulance, and I was obviously there. And so I had 8 more episodes in the ambulance because the blood clot was still there. The doctors in the ambulance would revive me by giving me CPR. My heart would jumpstart again, and the heart attack would start again, and so on and so forth. Anyways, After this is all miracles. We reached the hospital, they put a stent in me, 15 days in the hospital. They said, you're fine, you're a soccer player, you've got a strong heart, so on and so forth. Came out of the hospital, maybe a month it was okay, then things started going down because I wasn't extremely healthy. Finally, 6 months later, they said, okay, you have congestive heart failure because your bottom half of the heart cannot handle. And this was the second shock to us. So we contacted. So at that time, this was 2015, December, I'd had my heart attack. So 2016, maybe February, March, or maybe August, we said, okay, what do you mean by heart transplant? We had no idea, especially like me. I'm an engineer, educated in one of the premier schools of India, so on and so forth. And we had no idea what organ transplant was all about. And we said, okay, where do we go and get a heart transplant? What do we do? So the hospital then directed us to South India. This is Chennai. We landed in South India. They do a couple of tests to check how bad your heart is. They tested me and they said, okay, don't go back, stay here. I said, what do you mean? I've left my family there. I run a business. I can't just. So he says, okay. They said, how long will it take for you to, sort everything out and come back? Because this is going to be for the long haul. So a heart transplant, you need to be on a list and, donors and availability and so on and so forth. I said, I need at least, 5 days. So they said, okay, come back in 5 days. And they were very casual about it. Of course, they didn't want me to panic, but it was crazy. So again, sorted the kids out with my mother-in-law, my mom and my sister-in-law, my wife's sister-in-law. They were amazing, took care of my kids for 3 months, landed in Chennai. And as we said, okay, now what? Fortunately, in Chennai, there was a fantastic infrastructure for transplants. And this hospital was doing almost, 120 transplants a year, including liver and kidney and so on and so forth. So we were very good. And this doctor was phenomenal, Dr. Bala. And from this point onwards, everything is miraculous. I found a heart in 2 months because my profile, I'm not a big guy. So they found a heart. I was O positive. They found a heart in exactly 2 months. We went into the operation, successful operation. Out of the ICU in 3 days. I was walking 2 flights of stairs 10 days after my transplant. It was brilliant. It was the nurses who were changing shifts were coming to see me and saying, oh, so you're the footballer who started walking 2 flights of stairs? I said, yes, ma'am, get me out of the hospital. Got out of the hospital, my best friend who'd been a golfer for 20 years said, dude, I know you've been a sportsman all your life. You cannot sit at home and do nothing. So here's my driver and here's my putter. Keep this. Whenever you're ready, start going to the range. So I had a driver and a putter right opposite my bed during recovery on a couch. And my wife used to wake up every morning and say, what the hell is this? Can I put it away? I said, no. Every morning she says, what is this doing here? This is a vertically standing two clubs right in the middle of the couch. And she's saying, get this up. I said, no. Got out of bed, did rehab, did physio, hit the range, represented India in the World Transplant Games in 2018, 19. So this has been my journey, nothing short of miraculous. All my life as a soccer player, I wanted to represent India, couldn't make it. I reached club levels. Post-transplant, 6 months later, I'm representing India. We are one of 2 golfers representing India in the World Transplant Game. I couldn't ask for anything better.
All right, that's a great story, and I know we're going to come back. And the fact you're wearing your Masters cap today, I'm very impressed. So it'd be great. So
thank you.
And thanks to Oregon India again. So coming to Houston, Texas, USA, Mr. Walt McGuire. Walt, you want to share your story for us in the next couple of minutes?
Sure. So my name is Walt McGuire. In 2006, I came down with a condition called amyloidosis. Was misdiagnosed for a short period of time. They thought I had a condition called FSGS, which affects the kidneys. At that time, my wife was going through breast cancer. I was on a visit with her to see one of her doctors and asked one of the doctors there if at MD Anderson, if it was something that I could visit with one of the doctors there and speak to them about my condition. They said, no, we only handle cancer patients. But here's a gentleman at the University of Texas you might want to speak to. So I went to speak to him. He took one look at me, ordered some slides, diagnosed me with amyloidosis, which is a folding protein disorder. It affected my heart, my liver, my kidney, my spleen, lungs. Prior to that, I was an avid softball player and ice hockey player. In the gym twice a day, 185 pounds, and loving life. Was sent for some testing and evaluations, and again, for bone marrow, they confirmed amyloidosis. Spent several years being treated for amyloid after stem cell transplant, but the damage had already been done to my heart, liver, and kidney. I worked all of those years every day faithfully, 4 days a week. On the 5th day, I would go in and I would have a paracentesis done, and I would have anywhere from 4 to 6 liters removed from my abdomen of fluid. And then I would rest the weekend and back to work I'd go on Monday. In 2010, my doctor, Dr. Jerry Estep, he's pictured in the center picture below in the green Methodist shirt, said, Mr. McGuire, we're gonna have to bring you in. So in August 30th of 2010, I entered Methodist Hospital. They put a Swan scans in me for, a week or two. And then an inner aortic balloon pump was inserted. I spent 4.5 months in the CVICU with the balloon pump in my chest, keeping me alive. And these doctors and nurses at Methodist that kept me alive are bar none, just miracle workers as far as I'm concerned. Waving goodbye to my daughter. January 15th of 2011, it was about 2 a.m., I guess. The nurses came in, and of course, when you're in the hospital that long, you learn, what vials are coming in for certain things and blood work and whatnot. And there were a couple tubes on there that I had never seen before. So I kind of knew something was going on behind the scenes. I didn't want to call and wake my wife. So I waited until about 5 a.m. And, I called and I just couldn't contain it any longer. And I said, Cher, I said, I know it's early, but I think there's something going on. She said, I'll be right down, So she got up, got dressed and ran down to the hospital. And sure enough, that morning, I was blessed with a donor from Dallas, Texas. A young lady had passed of an aneurysm, donated her heart, liver, and kidney to me. That evening, I would say it was about 7 o'clock, the nurses came in to get me with a gurney. And I said, I don't need a gurney. I can walk. And they said, no, it's hospital policy. You've got to get on the gurney. And I said, well, you call Dr. Estep because I'm not getting on that gurney. I walked in here and I'm going to walk out of here. So Dr. Estep said, listen, if the guy wants to walk, let him walk. And I pushed my balloon pump down the hall, waved goodbye to all my nurses, told them I'd see them all soon. And got myself up on the prep table. Got a chance to see all of my family. I have a great friend that assisted in getting all my family, their flights in from out of town, and everyone come visit. I think I spoke to my wonderful daughter, second to last. She's pictured in she's in the very middle, in the very middle picture in the very middle. And I told her, listen, Daddy's going to do his part. And if the surgeons do all their part, I'll open my eyes and I'll see you in the morning. And that's kind of how it went. Laid down, she walked out, my wife came in, I spoke to her, said my goodbyes to my lovely wife, said, you know, one way or another, someone's going to learn something, and I hope they don't say whoops. So about 11 o'clock, surgery was about to begin. My family went back to the hotel. My wife stayed behind. And about 2 a.m., my wife had not heard anything yet when the transplant coordinator came walking in to let her know that there's been an issue and the heart did not start. So she said it was the longest walk of her life down the hallway, and the hallway just seemed to get longer and longer and longer until she got to the room. In she walked. My surgeon was in there, Dr. Loby, Dr. Jerry Estep, and then Dr. Gaber and a few of the other folks. They began to tell her that the heart would not work, but they found a second heart 4.5 hours later. My wife just said, well, you know, where is it? And Dr. Loby said, it's literally around the corner at a trauma center. And my wife said, well, what are you doing still sitting here? And if anybody knows Dr. Loby, he's a great big German, you know, tough as nails. And he jumped up and out the door he ran, and they came back in and put the heart in me the next, you know, shortly after. I waited till the next day. They put my first donor's kidney in me. The liver was given to someone else. By the grace of God, I opened my eyes up 5 days later. And here I am. That's my story.
Here you are. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And by the way, Walt and Mandy, real quick, I believe Donna Esposito is on the line today. So I know you guys have very warm feelings for all the transplant coordinators and nurses and surgeons at Houston Methodist. So I thought I'd just share that you guys are in the same room today. So, you know, I know you guys are fans. So
they're great.
yeah. So Mandy, I'm gonna pass it on to you. Do you want to tell your story, and then we'll move to Eiley, and then we'll get into some Q&A.
Sure. Thank you, Glenn. Hello, everybody. My name is Mandy Nathan. I live in Houston, and 1.5 years ago, I received a heart transplant at Houston Methodist Hospital after being an inpatient for 6 months. Until around 2013, although I had minor heart problems, I was living my life to the fullest. I'd been married for 22 years, had 2 high school age boys, and worked part-time as a lawyer. I was a city council member. I was an active community volunteer, had lots of friends and an active social life. And then the wheels came off. Over the next 6 years, I began suffering from severe heart failure. I developed atrial fibrillation that caused 4 mini strokes, and I had to be shocked by a defibrillator that had been implanted in my chest 5 times to stop potentially fatal ventricular tachycardia episodes. We ultimately discovered that this was a genetic heart defect that no one on either side of my family had ever apparently suffered symptoms from. I had stopped going to work and volunteering. I couldn't drive. I'd been told it wasn't safe for me to walk around the block by myself. And I was afraid to even be by myself at home. I was really a shell of my former self. I was depressed and felt like I was just waiting for the inevitable event that was going to leave me disabled or dead. In 2019, after my 4th hospitalization in 5 months, I was admitted to Houston Methodist, and I was placed on the national transplant list. And while that was a great relief, it was tempered by the fact that my transplant team had discovered that I had extraordinarily high antibody levels. And while we all know the good that antibodies do, they help us fight off infections. In my case, they were so numerous and so dense that my team eventually estimated that over 99% of donated hearts would be incompatible for me because my body would reject them. And so I spent the next 6 months as an inpatient at Methodist Hospital, attached to an intra-aortic balloon pump like Walt, which for those of you who don't know is a very loud 3.5-foot pump that through a catheter inflates a long balloon that's implanted in your heart. And as with Walt, it helped my heart pump. All the while, my transplant team was putting me through three, at times grueling protocols to try to get my antibody levels down. The first two protocols were the standard desensitization protocols used on transplant patients with high antibodies. Each consisted of 5 plasmapheresis treatments, which are a little bit like dialysis, except they take all the plasma out of your body because that contains your antibodies, and they replace it with saline or some other product. I also had a few IV immunoglobulin treatments, which put in good antibodies, and an antibody therapy used on cancer patients. The first 4-week protocol failed to make much of a dent in my antibodies, so they had me repeat the entire protocol, and that one was unsuccessful as well. During the 8 weeks it took to perform these protocols, my transplant team was having to turn down hearts that were offered to me because of my antibodies, which was devastating. Also during these 8 weeks, I had to have my balloon pump removed and replaced on the other side of my chest because of a hematoma. I had to have ruptured balloons replaced twice. I had to have 2 more visits to the OR for additional surgeries to further excavate my stubborn hematoma. I had a liver and kidney failure scare, gained and lost and regained fluid in the double digits, and took a varying cocktail of 25 to 30 pills a day. For 6 months, I was unable to leave the cardiac ICU floor except to go to the cath lab or the OR, and I couldn't move more than 6 feet from my balloon pump. After the first 2 standard antibody removal protocols failed, my transplant team combed the research and found one last arrow in their quiver, as they told me, an experimental protocol only attempted on a handful of patients worldwide that had worked for one guy in France. It consisted of another round of the standard protocol again, which by this time was so taxing on my body that I couldn't even complete the plasmapheresis treatments. This time followed by 8 weekly doses of a chemotherapy drug usually used on multiple myeloma patients. By week 4, that protocol too had shown little success. I was losing what little hope I had left. I had difficult conversations with my family and my friends. I drafted my funeral service, and I wrote letters to my husband, sons, and parents to be opened upon my death. And then at almost midnight, on the very night that I did my last experimental chemotherapy treatment, after 173 days at Methodist, I got a call from one of my team doctors. Excuse me. There was a heart from a donor in another state whose antibodies, incredibly, were a perfect match for mine. I was transplanted the next day. After the transplant, one of my doctors told me that I had a 1 in 5 million chance of finding a perfect donor like her. And just like that, because of that generous 1 in 5 million donor and my incredible team at Methodist, who never gave up on me, I have my life back. And that's my story. Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy. Thank you for sharing. Moving on to last but not least, Haile Ice from South Africa. We have a few minutes left. Would you like to share your story? And then we'll get into Q&A. And a reminder, if anybody has questions, they can put them in the chat session. So Haile, it's up to you.
Thank you, Glenn. Each one's story is so unique. Thank you for sharing that. I'm a nephrology nurse and have been in nursing since the early 70s, and with dialysis and transplantation as a specialty since 75. Now I'm dating myself. Most of the others haven't been born yet. But also during those times of dialysis and transplantation, being a professional there, I was also part of selection committees in the 70s. You know, selection committees decided who lives and who dies to go on dialysis or get a transplant. So that was my background. And in 1994, I contracted Wegener's disease and went into renal failure. Now, being a dialysis nurse myself, I knew exactly what was going to happen. And being on peritoneal dialysis for over 3 years, I eventually got a transplant in 2004 for which I'm very grateful. It was very strange. After my transplant, the psychologist came to me and he said, now I want to talk to you about things. It was so difficult to get myself out of the role of a professional transplant nurse to talk about my personal transplant. And I think he had a very bad time with me because it was difficult to communicate with him. I immediately joined the South African Transplant Sports Association. I've been a sports person my whole life. So to me, I just shifted my focus from being a normal sports person to a transplanted sports person. And ever since that, 2005 was my first games, and I've participated in 8 World Transplant Games ever since then. Now, you know, I was blessed with skills and knowledge from my profession, and I felt led by the Lord to go into sports management, transplant sports management. And my biggest objectives in sports management is to restore the confidence of other transplantees to lift themselves up to become active again, and also to develop our disadvantaged athletes. Now in South Africa, we've got a big challenge to do that. And to me, it's really part of my mission. So in summary, just to say, I've got my transplant now for 17 years, for which I'm very grateful. I'm privileged to have experienced the transplant from a professional side, also from a patient side. And being an athlete and part of transplant sports, I experienced that side. But one of the biggest roles that I also find that transplanted people can do is to be an advocate for other transplanted people, to show them how to get out of the sick mode, how to get back into active participation, even if it's just walking around the block, and then to take them further from there. So in short, that is my story.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for all of us for sharing your stories. Obviously, each one is unique. There obviously are some common threads between all of them, and I think one of the common threads is 2 common threads. One was hope. You never gave up even in the darkest days, and more importantly, your teams never gave up. And I think the other one is gratitude. So so I have a lot of questions, guys. So we got to get busy. I guess my first question, I'm gonna give this to Mandy and to Eiley. So Mandy, if you had a chance to chat with your donor, what would you say? If you had a chance to have a cup of coffee or whatever with your donor, what would you say? And then Eiley, I'll ask you to answer the same question when Mandy's done.
Oh gosh. Well, you know, gratefulness
you a hard one early. Sorry about that. So
that's right. You know, gratefulness would be the first topic. How do you thank somebody for saving your life? You know, I guess, you know, I'd want to ask, you know, what led them to want to be a donor. Yeah.
Okay. Eiley, same question.
Yeah, I think I agree with her. That is specifically what I'll also ask him. But, you know, coming back to when did they decide to become a donor, that's very important, because they all got backgrounds of certain things in their lives. And that's one of the questions that I'll definitely ask you.
Okay, great. So this one is for the gentleman. This is for Kahuna Walt, and Kahuna will have you go first, and then Walt to follow up. If you could tell the public one thing about organ, eye, and tissue donation, what would it be?
Well, because I work with Organ India as well, and we do a lot of organ awareness, donation awareness programs, and I've said this before. And this would also apply to as an answer to the previous question. For me personally, the guy who donated his organs is my God. Frankly speaking, he gave me life. And I would say this to all the potential organ donors, that if there is a legacy that you can leave behind, It has to be your organs so that other people can live.
Okay. Walt, any thoughts?
I really don't know how to answer that.
Okay, fair. Mandy or Hailey, would you like to jump in on that? Anything you'd like the public to know about organ, tissue, and eye donation?
I think the most important thing here in South Africa is to make sure that they tell their family what their wishes are. So often the family don't know and or doesn't know, and then the organs get wasted. So that's my message to them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mandy, any thoughts on the topic?
Yeah, mine would just be, you never know when your organ is going to be the only one that can save somebody's life. I mean, that was certainly the case for me. I mean, I don't know, how much longer Methodist was going to keep me around, because there really wasn't much hope that my antibodies were going to get much lower. So if she had not come along, if that one donor hadn't come along.
Got it. Okay. This is a question for Karhoon. Karhoon, how excited were you when you got a chance to return going back to playing sport? One thing you mentioned about the fact you put the driver and the putter in the middle of the couch and that drove your wife crazy. But how excited were you just to get back into sport?
Oh, I cannot describe it. I think the biggest motivation for me to get well and get out of bed was the fact that I could actually get back to a sport, which was golf, which I would be able to play for the rest of my life. So I couldn't contain it. In fact, I started swinging, the club indoors with almost an accident of breaking the lights and stuff like that. The day I hit the range, I have never looked back. My wife actually is a golf widow, so she makes a joke about this. I'm completely obsessed by it. So it's the best thing. I mean, the second best thing. I mean, it's the best gift to be alive, to be able to get back to sports. It's brilliant.
That's great. Well, hopefully you'll be able to come to America someday. Bring your clubs and we'll play. And you got to give me 5 strokes aside, okay?
Done.
Done. Sounds good. This one is for Mandy. Mandy, have you had the opportunity to return to practice law? You had mentioned that you were a practicing lawyer until this happened. Have you had a chance to return to practice law?
I haven't gone back. I have worked for the same firm for 27 years. And I told them, in December that I didn't know if I wanted to practice anymore. And, that if I decided I do, I would obviously let them know. And they said, that's great. We understand you may have a new perspective on life. So, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Unfortunately, I have all transplant have, immunosuppressed symptoms, and mine are very severe. So I'm really not allowed to go out of my house very much. So that's going to make it somewhat challenging when I do decide what I want to do. But no, for now, I'm not practicing law.
Well, and the great thing, one of the good things, at least about Zoom, is there's a whole new way to communicate now that we figured out. So
Yeah,
if anything
there is.
ever came of Zoom, it's Zoom. So
Yeah.
I'm going to ask this of all 4 of you. So we'll go Karhoon, Walt, Mandy, and Hailey in order. What are your thoughts about getting, and by the way, these questions this is an open and honest room. And some of these questions are very pointed. If you don't feel comfortable answering the question, that's fine. Just say, hey, we're going to take a pass. So Karhoon, I'll start this and we'll go through. What are your thoughts about getting a chance to meet the donor family? And how do you think they would feel about it? So I'm not sure if you had a chance to meet your donor. I mean, obviously yours was a heart. So I don't know if you had a chance to meet their family or whatever. And I believe in India, there's laws that you cannot connect with the donor family. So what are your chances about the chance to meet the donor family, and how do you think how would they feel about it, do you think?
Well, so in India, we are shielded, the donors and the recipients, for whatever reason. but I did try to speak to the hospital staff and try and find out if I could be in touch with them. And they actually told me a story about a previous heart transplant recipient who was a little bit influential, and he managed to locate the family of the heart donor. And when he went to meet them, just to express his gratitude, the father of the young donor who he had lost wanted to say that because my son lives inside of you, I want you to come and live with me. I don't want any monetary benefits. I don't want anything. I just want my son to live with me again. How do you respond to an emotion like that, especially when you're so full of gratitude and you feel obligated? So it's very emotional. I don't know how I would react, frankly speaking. If the family of the donor asked something of me, I don't know how I would react. It would be a very difficult to say no to them. As far as they're concerned, I don't know how they would feel. I mean, I haven't had that experience.
That's a fair and honest answer. Thank you. Walt, say question. How would you feel about the thoughts of getting a chance to meet the donor family? And maybe you did, I'm not certain.
Yeah, so of course, many of you may or may not know here in the US, you do write your donor families a letter. And of course, it's kept very plain Jane, no names, no photos, none of that information is in the initial letter. If the family chooses to reach back out to you, then you can take it a step further. For me, my original donor of my heart, liver, and kidney, and I do have her kidney, of course. I reached out to her family and have not heard anything in return. My heart donor, immediately his family responded. And my wife and I and my youngest daughter all flew down to Texas, got a chance to break bread with their family and have a great family dinner and meal, and brought a stethoscope along with us for her to hear her son's heart in my chest. Just the most amazing family, just incredible. She calls me her son. I gladly accept that honor and privilege to be called that. When I go to Houston, I have permission from her to visit Stan Lee's grave anytime that I wish. And again, we stay in touch through Facebook and whatnot. And again, Graciela is just a remarkable woman, and I'm blessed beyond belief.
Gotcha. Thank you. Mandy, same question.
Yeah, so my story is a little odd. Part for my course, I had some complications after my transplant, so I didn't end up leaving the hospital for about a month. And I had not been home for probably 5 or 6 days when my transplant coordinator called and said, the donor family contacted the hospital and they want to know X, Y, and Z about you. And the X, Y, and Z are it's kind of the same list that they tell us to include in the letter. So, I very quickly wrote them a letter. I didn't have a lot to update them on, but I could certainly tell them that I was alive and well. So I did do that. I didn't hear from them. I wrote them another letter on my 1-year anniversary, my birthday, as it's called, and have not heard back. I would love to hear back from them, though.
Okay.
I hope one day I will.
Thanks. And then highlight same question about what are your thoughts about getting a chance to meet the donor family?
After transplants in South Africa, most of the transplant coordinators recommend that we write a letter, like the other said. They then give it to the donor family, and apart from that, we don't have any contact with the donor family. I personally, I don't have a wish to meet them after so many years, but in 2009, one of my medals after the Australian Games I engraved to my donor family. And one of that medal is my donor's medal. And I'm always grateful when I look at that medal. So that is our situation.
That's great. Well, tell you what, I've got one more question for all of you, and then I'm going to kind of give you all the last word before we wrap this up. And we'll go in reverse order. We'll go ladies first. So we'll go Hailey, Mandy, then Walt and Carhoon. The question is, I mean, your stories are just so, they're so different, they're so current, but I mean, the journey you went through just to get to this it's something. You know, it's funny, I was listening to your remarks and it was kind of like you went through this long, arduous journey, and it's like, and then I got my organ, and then I just moved forward. So it's like, you know, you also had a long journey. So I'll ask this question first of you, Hailey, and then Mandy. What helped you all and kept you all motivated not to give in or give up? Just what kept you driving every day? What kept you just coming back? And Hailey, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think hope and faith are the two things that that drives me. So without that, surely I can't go through a day. So that's in short what.
Perfect.
If it's not for God, then I can't go on.
Understood. Mandy, what got, you know, you talked about what, 173 days and
Yeah.
you know, you ran the marathon. So what kept you going? And you also talked very honestly, and you'll also the same thing about your Houston Methodist staff. I mean, you know, it's like, it was kind of like, you know, Mandy's Army kind of deal. So what kept you going and not saying just like, you know what, I'm over this, you know, what kept you going?
You know, a few things. One was my family. You know, I had 8 pictures of my husband and my sons and my parents and my friends right beside my bed. And every time things got grim, I just looked at that picture and knew I had to press on. Prayer and God was very big for me as well. There was a great chaplain at Methodist who I became very friendly with. His name is Brian Gowan, and he had a guitar and he would come in and we would sing. He came to my room literally every day. He was wonderful. And yeah, the doctors and the nurses at Methodist. I mean, Methodist has a team of transplant cardiologists and they all round. So we don't have one doctor assigned to us, which I wasn't really crazy about when I heard about it, but in the end, it was great. And I understand why they do that system, and it's a great one. The doctors were all wonderful, and the nurses, I mean, when you're there for 6 months, you know, they become family. I know more about my nurses probably than I do about my real friends, you know, just because they were there every day, 24 hours a day. And yeah, so they were great. So, you know, it was a combination of things. You kind of just have to get in the mindset that you're gonna make yourself have a positive attitude, because otherwise, you know, I never would have gotten out of bed.
Good. Walt.
Yeah, our family had a motto: I will, not I won't, not I can't, not I'll try. It was I will. And I got up every day and I brushed my own teeth. I got myself washed. My wife would make meals every day. And then, you know, as I mentioned earlier, my wife, while I was going through all of this, had breast cancer. And she, you know, went through treatment and was there by my side every day, regardless. So it's kind of hard to give up, you know, when you have somebody striving that hard for you to help you. And then the nursing staff, I mean, just, you know, as Mandy said, you know, I can't thank them and the doctors enough. I have to tell you, it's just an incredible experience.
Carhoon?
Well, what kept me going were my kids, because when I had my heart attack, my son was 11 and my daughter was 9. And I'll never forget their faces when, you know, we dropped them and we were driving towards the hospital. They were howling, and, you know, I said, no, I can't give up on them. I will not give up on them. And they still keep me motivated every day. I'm still competing with my son. We go to the gym every day. He runs 5-7 Ks every day. Well, I don't do that, but we're still competitive. So my kids and my family keep me going every day.
Sounds great. Thank you. I have one more quick question, and then at the end, I'm going to give it's going to be whoever wishes to answer it. But then I'll have one, I'm going to give you all the final word at the end, and then we'll do a little housekeeping. So this is open to the group, and all can answer who feel comfortable. Did any of you ever feel guilty when you were given a second chance at life? Sorry, we're throwing fastballs now. It's the end of the, does anybody care to answer that?
Absolutely. You know, it was to have someone perish to keep you alive for your family is just, it's very difficult to accept.
Understood. Would anybody else like to weigh in on that? Again, it's an optional answer.
And I'll just add too, you know, I've forgotten the number of people offhand, even just in the United States, who suffer from heart failure. And, you know, I think there's 4,000 people in the United States on the transplant list for a heart. So, you know, there's a lot of people who don't get the opportunity that we did.
Understood. Thank you. Carhoon or Hailey, would you like to weigh in, or would you like to go forward?
Yes,
I
no. Go ahead.
I don't feel guilty about the gift of life that I got. I feel that through that gift, I actually extend part of the donor in me. So I don't feel guilty.
Carhoon, any thoughts?
Well, guilty, but more grateful to be alive and my kids not having to lose a father. But I do make sure I give back to society. I work very closely with Organ India, trying to raise organ donation awareness. But more grateful than guilty. I'm sorry if that is the wrong answer, but I'm being honest here.
No, this room is honest, so it's honest room. So first of all, last opportunity, final words from each of you. Hailey, any final thoughts? And then Mandy.
So I think every transplant person has got its own story, but the common denominator, as you said earlier, is the absolute thankfulness of everything. So I think if we stay with that, then everything is fine.
Mandy?
You know, I would just encourage people to talk about organ donation. I mean, clearly from looking at the comments, you know, so many people who are listening today are donors or recipients. And, you know, just talk about it, encourage people to donate. That's kind of what I'm doing right now instead of working. I volunteer with Life Gift, which is the local OPO here in Houston, and I tell my story.
Great. Walt, and then Carhoon, I'll give you final word.
Yeah, agreed. Just keep telling the same story. Keep telling the words of, encouragement, to sign up for organ donating. My wife and I and my daughter do some work with one of the local high schools. We meet each year with the children of whichever grade they choose. We talk to them about, organ donation, what we went through, survival, just how to enjoy life and keep going and never give up.
Great. Carhoon?
Well, and this is a message to everyone. We all spend our lives worrying about very trivial things. Only when we have a near-death experience or you come back after dying is when you realize how simple life is, how you simplify life. I mean, for me now, just being able to get out of bed in one stride, it makes my day, and that's all. That's I don't need anything else to be happy, and that's the message I want to give to everyone. I mean, you're alive, and that's what you should maximize on. Everything else is secondary.
Also, teas and greens, Carhoon, teas and greens, right?
Absolutely. And also one last word. I'm sorry. My daughter just messaged me that, so my daughter also plays soccer. I haven't mentioned that I play soccer. So I'm living my soccer, life through her. So I'm a soccer dad, 100%.
What's your daughter's name?
She's Amaya.
Maya. So shout out to Maya and her soccer team this year. Best of luck to her team. So, guys, first of all, thank you for all of your time today. It's truly just it's great stuff. Couple additional thank yous. First of all, again, to the World Transplant Games Federation, to Oregon India, for Houston Methodist, to helping arrange our speakers today. We could not have done without you. Also, our local organizing committee and our coffee chat subcommittee, Trisha, George, Kathleen, Kayla, everybody, we really appreciate it. Also, and I haven't done this before, I want to do it again. I really want to give a shout out to the staff at Harris County Houston Sports Authority. Right now, you guys don't know it, but there's 20 people sitting in a war room answering and funneling questions. So Chris Matthew, Holly Kesterson, Meredith Purdue, especially Jessica Townsend, everybody, thank you for your guys' time. It makes all of us just look good. And, we're in this for the cause, and I'm truly grateful for your help and your support. Just a couple things. If anybody has any questions that they want to get answered, they didn't feel get answered today, you can go to WTG 2021 at houstonsports.org. We'd love to have questions from you. We will answer them as quickly as possible. We pretty much have people manning the email, I think 22 out of 24 hours of the day. So we'd happily answer your questions for you. The coffee chat train rolls on. Tomorrow's a little bit different. At noon Houston time, we're actually having just an open house. People come in, you can share. It's not a real big thing. We're just going to sit and we're going to talk. We're going to kind of, get the coffee, and we're just going to sit and share stories and answer questions to the best of our abilities. But please join us. So we're going to do that tomorrow at noon. On Thursday, we're going to have our fourth and final panel group. We're going to have transplant coordinators and nurses from around the world. Again, speaking, I believe we may have a little representation from Houston Methodist. So, there you go. Walt and Mandy, we'll give them a little bit more of a shout out. So that's going to be on Thursday. And as Janice said, yes, coffee or some wine for hours, depending on what time of the day it is. So, and then Friday, we're going to have our final open house. And then a final commercial on Saturday, I believe I think it is, help me on the time because I'm on Eastern time, at 10 o'clock Central. We're going to have our closing celebration. So if you are registered for the World Transplant Games 5K anyway, you're eligible to join. It's going to be an awesome experience. And really, we're going to give it one more big virtual hug before we wrap this thing up. Finally, you've registered. That's great. Get out there, do your 5Ks, record your 5Ks. There's still a chance for you to build your team. Obviously, for every 10 people you get on the team, we unlock a Text the Teddy Bear in partnership with Build-A-Bear Workshop, and that is donated to a child on the transplant list. And these bears are going global, guys. So it's really a chance for you to make a difference. So seeing no other questions, the link will be provided for open house tomorrow. It usually comes out, the links come out about an hour before. So be on the lookout for that. So hearing nothing else from the chat room, we appreciate your all's time. This has been a great global community. Each of these they get better and we get stronger. And like I said, if one person learned one thing today, it's a good use of an hour. And my friends, this has been a great use of an hour. So we appreciate you all. We love you all. We hope to see you tomorrow for open house and then the chats. And goodbye from the USA. And we will see you soon. Take